Hello, everyone, and welcome to Down Bad, the self-help podcast where I, Jodi Johnson, talk about everything mental health related, from the challenges that we face to the celebrations that take place. On the show, I use my vulnerability in hopes that the more we as humans talk, share, and work together, the more we make mental health care accessible and acceptable for every single human being out there. This journey is yours and no one else's. Not your mom's, your dad's, your siblings, your significant others, your neighbors, no one's. It's yours every single step of the way. So thanks for being here and staying true to yourself, even in times of uncertainty and discomfort. New episodes release every Thursday. Okay, so I chose not to wear the Morpheus sunglasses today because instead I want to show off my mustache, or at least my attempt at a mustache, because happy Movember. And yes, I just said November, but with an M. Well, I guess if you're listening to this episode on release day, then it's actually happy Halloween, and we actually haven't hit November yet. But when you're listening to this episode does not matter. That is not the point. The point is that the month of November is a month where men like me are able to grow out their mustaches, or like I said, attempt to grow out their mustaches, in order to raise awareness for men's health issues like men's suicide, which is a subject that I'm very passionate in talking about. Because our culture still holds major stigmas surrounding men's mental health, the way that we express our emotions, our level of self-worth, fatherhood, the intimate relationships that we develop, just asking for fucking help. Damn it, there it is. There's the curse word. I got away with all last episode without saying one cuss word, but I guess we're really going to dive into it today, so I would expect a few more out of me. In undergraduate, in college, I remember looking at statistics on suicide for the previous year, and I remember that I was in a breakout room, and I just started crying while I was writing applications to counseling programs across the country. Because, I feel such a deep empathy for other humans because I know exactly what it's like to feel so out of control of your world. And in order to have some sort of agency in your life, you cause harm to yourself. Because, my thought pattern used to be, if I can't control how I live, then I will certainly control how I die. I looked at this data in 2023, so the year before was 2022, where our country saw some of the worst suicide statistics, ever possibly imaginable. Close to 50,000 people died by suicide in 2022. And although, right now in 2024, almost 2025, there's really only provisional data for the year of 2023 because it looks about the same, if not worse. Because how do you still not have that data analyzed 2 years later? But in 2022, I remember that the success rate for men was 4 times greater than it was for women to die by suicide. Men only make up 50% of the population, but how do we make up 80% of the suicides that take place? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? When someone overseas kills our men, when people come here and take away our freedom and American lives, we go to war. We go to war immediately, no questions asked. But when our men die at the hands of themselves, it's almost as if we're powerless. We feel powerless, we feel paralyzed, and we feel immobilized by it. And most of the time, we don't go to war for these men. But I'm having this discussion today because men's suicide needs to be talked about more, because there's clearly a world war within. And I think a lot of this is due to the cultural norms and the expectations that society has of masculinity that negatively impacts men's mental health. Notions like suppressing our emotions, conformity, discouraging emotional intimacy, seeing work and success as measures of our self-worth, which I've talked about before. And our cultural norms are going to vary across cultures, and in our own individual lives, we have intersectionality that's going to play a role. But, one of the main reasons why we're here is to talk about how the be a man mindset leads to us being silent about what we're struggling and experiencing as fellow men. And it manifests as an expectation for us to be emotionally resilient. self-sufficient, and stoic, which is not attainable 100% of the time. It's just not. This pressure encourages a cycle of, again, silence in many ways. It's the fear of being judged. There's self-stigma that we have on ourselves, the perception that we are going to be perceived as weak. There's the isolation and loneliness epidemic. Men have a limited emotional vocabulary. We don't really know how to talk about things when we're experiencing them. And, we don't really have the greatest celebrity or famous role models out there, preaching mental health. We're beginning to, but it hasn't always been that way. And then, of course, a lot of men have unhealthy coping mechanisms that, we need to work through. But again, I'm not saying this to freak everybody out that's currently listening to this. I'm saying this because change is coming. Because we are utilizing our vulnerability to promote conversations about mental health, which is saving other men's lives and helping other men gain control of theirs. Because true strength lies in our vulnerability. Our weakness is our silence. Guys, we're talking about this today. I'm bringing this up. It's Halloween, October 31st. It's not even November yet, but I'm itching to talk about this topic because I used to commit harm to myself, straight up. I used to commit self-harm often. In high school and early in college, I cut myself. I punched concrete walls. I drank till I threw up stomach bile. I had substance abuse problems. I just did anything that I could possibly do to manifest the mental uncontrollable pain that I was experiencing into something more physical and manageable, regardless of how bad that it hurt me physically. And as I said earlier, I didn't feel in control of how I was living. So I was focused on controlling how I could die. And I don't necessarily think that I was suicidal, but again, I was trying to manifest something mental into something physical, and I really didn't care what the consequences were. And it sounds so dramatic. It sounds super dramatic, but it's really not, because it can happen to anyone. It can happen to good people. It can happen to bad people. It can happen to rich people. It can happen to poor people. It can happen to black people. It can happen to brown people. It can happen to white people. It can happen to yellow people. It can happen to blue people. It can happen to red people. You guys see where I'm going with this? If you're a human being, it can happen to you. So eventually in college, in my sophomore year, I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD for short. And this diagnosis turned things around for me because I was able to, one, be given cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as be given meds that helped me work on my impulsivity, my inattention, my sleep, and substance abuse issues, as well as many other things that I was experiencing. But I know that I'm not the only one who experiences struggles as a man. I'm not alone in those regards. So that's why we need to foster these open conversations. And I want to share with you guys a response to a question I put on the Down Bad podcast Instagram the other day. And the question was, how have you struggled mentally in relation to your identity as a man? And a listener from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, responded to this story by saying he is feeling the need to commit to more masculine activities while having no drive or energy to be able to. And dude, I totally get that. I totally understand that, and I 100% empathize with you because I feel the same thing. I feel the need to have to commit to more masculine activities while being depressed or not having the proper energy to be able to. What I want to ask everybody currently out there is, what do masculine activities actually mean to you? Are there certain aspects to these activities that resonate with you as a man? Is that why you're being pulled towards them? Because if you're feeling pulled towards these activities, then that may not be a bad thing at all. But you also do not want to let these feelings weigh you down every single day. It's important that we as men find balance between what we should do and the things that we want to do. So the things that we have to do, we must do these things, and then the things that we add on to our lives to take away some of the mundanity and the repetitiveness of our lives. And it's important to remember to start small and to take your time, because trust me, you're going to build momentum. The only way that you're not going to build momentum is by standing still, by staying still. But seriously, guys, like, what are the activities that you are considering? Write them down. Like, don't just keep it up there. Like, it's up there for a reason. And guys, like, I seriously love the perspectives of other people. So if you guys would like to hear more listeners' submissions, please let me know, because I would love to have more on the podcast. Because again, it is crucial that we as men talk about our struggles with mental health to reduce the stigma that surrounds it, to promote connection and build communities of men that are there to support each other, that encourage emotional expression. Because, you know, as human beings, we should be able to experience the full spectrum of emotions. We shouldn't have to limit ourselves to only, you know, the ones that make us feel good all the time. Talking about our struggles as men in relation to mental health can facilitate actual problem solving. We build a support network of people that are there for us. And one of the most important things that I think talking about it does is empower other men that are struggling. Because like I said, I know I'm not the only man that is experiencing these troubles. This one has been huge for me, because this issue is way bigger than me. It is way bigger than me. Talking about it also improves the coping mechanisms that we utilize and that we rely on. And finally, it encourages other men to seek help. It encourages other men to seek help when they feel that their vulnerability is a sign of weakness. And guys, if we do these things as a result, we promote mental health and well-being for everyone. And why would I not want to do that? Mental health and well-being is my shit, so I love talking about it. I'm always open to be able to talk about this kind of things. And, you know, it makes me really, really happy to see celebrities and famous people using their platforms to be able to push mental health awareness and actually promote it. Because it highlights that every human is vulnerable to mental health challenges. So I think that we also need to stop seeing celebrities and famous people as people that are above us, that are not susceptible to mental health challenges. Your status, your label, your title, it will not protect you from mental health struggles. And a famous person that I want to bring up right now is A.J. Brown, a wide receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles, because in an interview about his mental health struggles, he opened up about wanting to take his own life. And even the reporter asking the question was choked up with tears, as you probably would be or were if you've seen this interview. I sure as hell was. I cried when I watched the video. I cry every time I watch the video because it's so fucking real. It's so real. He's real life sharing that he faced anxiety and the weight of the expectations from his fans, his friends, his family, and even himself. He's someone that emphasizes the importance of talking about mental health openly and seeking help when needed. And this kind of perspective that A.J. Brown brings to the table encourages other athletes, other kids, and just human beings in general to prioritize their mental well-being and not feel ashamed about their struggles, because we're human. And people are looking at the TV every Sunday. Little kids are looking at the TV every Sunday, seeing A.J. Brown as their hero. And their hero opens up and talks about stuff like that. That is so empowering. That is major. And I'm saying this as a Steelers fan, because what he did, what he does, is way bigger than football. He is a true man on and off the field, and that's commendable. So in college, I created a men's support group where men were able to have a safe space where they could talk about and share openly, without judgment, topics of masculinity. So how can, we foster these kind of spaces in our everyday lives? Well, it starts with us having to continually practice active listening, practicing radical compassion and empathy. Because when we encourage people to share without trying to fix their problems, it gives them
the space that they need. And that space that they need could open up a whole new world for them. You have no clue what just listening to somebody and having empathy can do. Using positive language, participating in activities in your community with other people around you that you can connect with, sharing mental health resources, and when you're actually having conversations with people, making sure that their confidentiality and their respect are upheld as you would for any other human being. And one of my favorite aspects of, a good friend is when they actually speak up about harmful stereotypes and behaviors that you have. Because if those stereotypes and behaviors aren't suiting you and helping you grow as a human being, then what is the point of you holding on to them? That's a good damn friend to help you challenge those narratives and not let them persist. Because again, silence is weakness. When we're silent, that's when we lose people. And I love the whole idea of friends. I love the whole idea of community, because your support and how you cope, it's going to play all the difference in how you manage your mental health. So when you talk with your friends or family members about mental health, as a man especially, it can be very, very hard. So I want you guys to be able to remember these few things that I'm about to share. The first is, when you're talking to them, please be honest about what you feel. And this is a simple sentence that you can say. So jot it down in your memory bank or write it down if you're not good at using words when you're experiencing mental health challenges. I've been going through a tough time and I'd like to talk about it. It's that simple. 2, you need to find the right time and the right place. Now, if you're asking me, I always think the best time is always right here and right now. But again, we're talking about, opening up about your mental health challenges. So it's important to have a quiet, comfortable space to be able to have this conversation. I understand that. The third is use I statements, because this is about you and nobody else. You can't really go off on a tangent and tell people that they won't get it. Because if all you do is tell people that they won't get it and don't tell them anything that's going on, they really won't get it because you didn't open up about anything. So try a sentence like, I have been feeling so out of control lately. 4, be specific. Don't beat around the bush, because, again, this is something that's not going to help people understand what you're going through. If you're specific, people are able to conceptualize better what you're experiencing and what they're going through. And as a result, they hopefully will be able to develop more empathy for you. 5, ask for what you need. Again, with I statements. I need you to listen to me for like 5 minutes, please. I don't need any help. I just need listening ears for 5 minutes. I need mental health resources. I want to speak to a mental health professional, but I don't know how to do it. I've never done it before. Can you point me in the right direction to resources? Or just, bro, I need a fucking hug. Man, I haven't had a hug in so long, man. I just need a hug right now. 6, encourage questions. Let them know that they can ask you questions. This is going to help them better conceptualize and better understand what you're going through. Like, when I bring guests onto this podcast, I love having guests on here because I love when they ask me questions. It helps us dive deeper into the topic that we want to, dive into. It helps me and my guest connect better because they've asked me a question that, has literally changed the outline of my podcast episode. 7, be prepared for somebody else's reaction because they might not know how to respond. You might stun them, honestly. Because sometimes, believe it or not, someone might just need time to process the thing that you've told them. I have been told some of the craziest shit that you can think of, and I'm not going to lie. Sometimes this information stuns me or just leaves me in complete and utter shock. And I'm someone that speaks with my face a lot of the time. So I'd never want my facial expression or the way that I react to harm somebody or make them feel invalidated. Sometimes I just need to be able to process what you just told me and just actively listen to you. And then lastly, follow up with that person and reassure them. Let them know that you're doing better or, you're not doing better. It's good to know so that they don't send themselves into a psychotic break or an anxiety attack. And of course, let them know that you appreciate their support. And then again, taking care of yourself, practicing self-care, it is crucial in prioritizing your mental health. So my practical self-care tips for you guys and strategies for being able to manage your stress and anxiety is, I talk about these all the time on the episode, or on the podcast, so I won't fully dive into them, but mindfulness, breathing exercises, exercise in general, socializing, not socializing, drawing, painting, listening to music, anything that you can think of that's a healthy coping mechanism that you can utilize to help you manage your stress and your anxiety is a useful tool to be able to help you cope. And then, the resources. I have, a bunch of national hotlines sitting right in front of me, and instead of reading them all out to you guys right now, I'm going to post them in the show notes of the episode. I got over 10 different countries in front of me right now because I don't know where you're listening to this from, but your life matters to me. And the last thing that I would want you to do is to leave this earth at the hands of yourself. So I will be posting these suicide hotlines in the show notes of this episode. So if you are truly, truly struggling and you don't know what to do in the next 5 minutes of your life, let alone the rest of your life, then please consider going to the show notes of the episode and finding the hotline that suits your best geographical location right now, because you matter. And thanks for being here. And that pretty much, we're coming to the commencement of this episode, because what I really wanted to do is emphasize the importance of addressing mental health issues among men and encourage you guys to have open conversations and break these societal stigmas that we have. We discussed how vulnerability is often seen as a weakness in men, yet expressing your emotions and seeking help is a sign of strength. It is a huge sign of strength. We talked about the importance of building supportive communities and friendships where men can actually talk about their struggles without fear of being judged. Because, you can't suppress that. It'll never truly go away. You actually have to work through the problem. And in this episode, we challenge traditional masculinity norms and how they contribute to feelings of isolation and inadequacy in our modern culture. I shared with you guys my personal the experience of a fellow listener to the podcast, the experience of AJ Green, highlighting that we as men face diverse challenges, and it is huge to be able to discuss these issues openly. I gave you guys some practical tips for you to support yourself and others that you're close with, or maybe not even close with, including, seeking therapy, engaging in new activities or old activities, and fostering connections, truly building community. In this episode, guys, I'm really calling for a cultural shift towards, and more inclusive and supportive conversations around men's mental health, because we can't continue to take on 80% of our nation's completed suicides. We can't. You deserve to be here just as much as I do, just as much as any member of my family, any one of my friends, any other human being on this earth. You deserve to be here just as much as them. So, as my friends at Active Minds would say, send silence packing. Silence is our number one weakness. We have to speak up about these issues if we want to see a difference in our country, in our communities, in our world. Men are losing the war within, and I'm personally someone that has been ready to go to war for us. So again, don't forget to reach out to your friends. Have these hard conversations. Take care of yourself. And when you can't, I hope you know that you can ask for help. So thank you guys again for tuning in to another week's episode. Share with me your guys' thoughts on the episode by commenting or sending me a DM, especially on the listeners' submissions, because I think that that's something that I want to continue in other episodes. And guys, of course, leave me a 5-star review if you found this episode helpful or useful, and actually send it to somebody that you think may benefit from it. Follow or subscribe, whatever you're following this podcast along on, so that you never miss an episode. Stay up to date by following me on social media platforms. My Instagram and YouTube are Jodi MF Johnson, and the Instagram for the pod is Down Bad, a podcast. And if you can, please donate to my fundraiser, because I'm running the Philadelphia Marathon in, I think it's 24 days now, with Team Active Minds to actually promote and spread awareness for mental health, especially for young adults. This is something that I'm so passionate about. So, even a dollar can make a difference. So we've raised over $1,200 so far, and that has been incredible. So if you've been a part of the journey so far, thank you guys so much. Next week, I'm going to be diving into the topic of grief. So if you're interested in that, catch me next week. As always, thank you guys for being here. Au revoir, belle personnes.